Classic WoW is going to be coming out, and people are going to have to level. The vast, overwhelming majority of people are going to suck at it, and that's why I made this video. Because there's going to be a lot of people rolling warrior out there, and I want them all to watch this video, because then I'll get a lot of money. Actually, it's because I want to help people, and this video is being made for purely altruistic reasons, and is not at all about numbers and money. So let's begin. I've leveled a warrior to 63 times in vanilla WoW, on retail, and including private servers like Elysium and Astarius. I've also had a bunch of lower level warrior alts, so I guess you could say that I'm probably the greatest warrior of all time. And I'm going to share with you guys some really weird leveling tricks that I've found incredibly useful, and that you've probably never heard of before. I'm the only warrior I've ever known who's actually used staves while leveling, and I don't say that because I think it's special and cool or whatever, I just think it's weird. I don't really know why. Actually, I do know why. It's because people want to be warriors with really big arms and big blades. Taste the blade of my steel, not some pussy soy boy mage.
Hi.
What a cuck! So I gotta get really big, awesome weapons that don't really do very much damage, but they look big and cool. Yeah, I gotta charge in there and get big ol' critties and get crits. Yeah, and staves don't typically have much strength on them. And I like strength and being real strong. But that doesn't matter, and I'll explain why. So when choosing a weapon for leveling, weapon damage and DPS are really the only two stats that you should be seriously looking at. Weapon stats like strength are very, very secondary. They don't do much. For example, Corpse Maker gives 15 strength, which people think is amazing. But 15 strength equates to about 2.1 damage per second. At that level, 2.1 weapon damage is about 5% of your total damage, which really isn't that much when you consider your average encounter with a mob lasts for about 15 to 20 seconds. So if your encounter is 20 seconds long, then that 5% means you will be killing mobs 1 second faster. Obviously, there's other things about Corpse Maker that make it good, but that might be for a different video. If you find a staff while leveling, look at its damage and nothing else. If it has a higher damage than your current weapon, use it. It's not going to turn you into a clothy, it's not going to hurt you. They're just like any other weapon. The weapon's speed doesn't even really come into play other than for Overpower, Whirlwind, and Mortal Strike. And you aren't going to be using Overpower all that much because mobs have a low dodge chance. You won't get Whirlwind till level 36, and Mortal Strike isn't till 40. So the weapon's speed isn't going to be that big of a deal until then. Certainly not if you're using like a level 15 two-hander when you're level 24, which you and I both know happens a lot more than it should. Now, obviously, if you're spec'd into axes or swords or something, there's going to be a bit more to consider. But if there's a staff reward that's better than your current weapon, take it, use it. It does the same amount of damage as an axe or a sword with the same stats. I get a lot of crap for this when I tell people about staves for some reason, but usually those people can't give me a reason why they shouldn't use them, especially when you see crazy high-end damage staves like this one. You can get this staff from a quest at level 45. That's crazy. Alright, next up is dual wielding. Dual wielding while leveling at high levels is a bad idea. When you're leveling, you don't have any plus hit, and you have something like a 14% chance to miss with one-handed weapons. Two-handers are much, much better. Like Mortal Strike is where it's at. I understand a lot of people out there have watched the Swifty video and they want to go punch some noobs and go Swifty dual wield. Why the hell are you trying? Yeah, warrior, what happened to you? Yeah, Swifty dual wield. But that's PvP. Plus hit isn't really as big of a deal in PvP. Dual wielding is pretty terrible without plus hit. Unless you're below level 40. There's a lot of really good two-handers above level 40, so you don't really have as much of an excuse for dual wielding above level 40. But below level 40 is a bit different. Well, I should say below level 30 because of the Whirlwind Axe. At lower levels, there's usually a lot of really good one-handers. Not a lot of good two-handers unless you're willing to go for staves. I showed you why staves are good, but I know a lot of you still aren't going to go for the staves, because somehow you're going to convince yourself that non-stabs are better and then leave a dislike for the video because I said there are some good stabs out there. But that's okay. I forgive you. Just be sure to leave a comment with that dislike, okay? That'd be great. So there are some okay builds out there for low-level dual wielding, and this is up to preference. It's not like my way is better than all the other ways. I'm just kidding, my way really is the best. Use this build right here. So since you are dual wielding, you are attacking fast and your target is dodging a lot more often than if you were attacking slow with a big slow two-hander, right? Especially if you have a fast offhand. Now when the target dodges, you get your overpower proc. If you use this build, your overpower has a 50% increased chance to crit. When you crit with this build, you're going to put a pretty strong bleed on your target because of this talent. And also, your overpower crits are going to be 20% more powerful than normal because of this talent. And then of course you're going to want to get your cruelty talents at some point. So that's why I use this build. I attack a lot faster, which means they dodge a lot more, which means I get to spam overpower a lot more, which means I get bigger overpower crits, which puts a bleed effect on them. Give it a try and let me know what you think. Last but not least, we have the Great Live. So before I go into this, I'm going to need to build a foundation for you to show you how I kind of came up with this. So once you know what you're doing as a warrior and you stop dying to things that you shouldn't be dying to, the most frustrating part of leveling is the time investment. So leveling time for a warrior can be broken up into 3 parts: the travel time, in-combat time, and recovery time. There's things you can do to reduce the travel time that I won't go over here because it's complicated and it would take too long, because this video is already going to be over exactly 10 minutes long, which is like what I aim for. So instead we're going to talk about in-combat time and recovery time. In-combat time is the time between when you see this and when you see that. It's when you're fighting stuff. Recovery time is the time between when you see that and when you see this. It's the time you spend picking out your next target, eating, healing up, and positioning. It's the time you spend out of combat. Reducing either or both of these times will obviously reduce your overall time spent leveling. I'm going to show you a really weird trick, or I don't know if it's a trick really, but a thing you can do to reduce your recovery time. But first, let's talk about strength and how it affects your in-combat time and recovery time. So for every point of strength, you get about 2 attack power after all is said and done. For every point of attack power, you get about 0.07 damage per second. And that appears to always be true. No matter what level you are or how much attack power you currently have, 1 attack power is equal to about 0.07 damage per second. Lower depending on the armor of your target. The more damage per second you have, the faster you can kill mobs. The faster you kill mobs, the less damage they do to you, which means less recovery time per mob, and less in-combat time as well. And that obviously makes your leveling process faster and easier to manage. This is why strength is your best stat. Everyone knows this, right? This is also why agility is not a terrible stat too. More crits equals faster leveling. Here's where it gets interesting. The spirit stat. The most hated stat by all melee classes, and I've also been told that it's completely useless and does nothing. I've been told to take literally anything over the spirit stat. One day, I was thinking about a recent video I released and how terrible it turned out. So I started jumping off the Zeppelin Tower outside of Undercity. I eventually started taking notice of how long it took to regenerate the health I would lose. I got curious and bought some cheap spirit gear. Put that gear on and began timing how long it would take with different amounts of spirit. Here's a summarized version of what I found. The healing per second per point of spirit is not static. It increases with spirit. So the more spirit you gain, the more effective each point of spirit you had becomes. It's like they power each other up or something. Spirit makes that recovery number go down, because it's healing you, reducing the amount of time you spend between pulls, and lowering your overall leveling time. Now don't get me wrong, strength is still much better. It's safer, it helps you kill stuff before they kill you. I'm not saying get beefed up with spirit gear at the expense of all your strength. What I am saying is, when you're replacing gear, make spirit a part of that equation, which most people don't do. Especially if you already have a lot of spirit. For example, if you have 78 spirit, each spirit point is worth 0.46 health per second while you're recovering, which is a total of about 36 health per second. 1 strength is about 2 attack power, which gives you about 0.14 damage per second, no matter how much attack power you have. That means, at 78 spirit, 1 point of spirit is 330% more effective at giving health per second during recovery than strength is at giving damage per second. It means that at that point, 1 point of spirit during recovery is as effective as 3.3 points of strength during combat, at reducing your overall time spent leveling. Now remember, that's if you already have 78 spirit, which is a pretty good amount. So if that's the case, and I'm choosing between gear with 1 strength on it and a piece with 5 spirit, if I'm comfortable handling the mobs I've been leveling with, I'm probably going to take the 5 spirit. Because that 5 spirit, depending on how much spirit you have, is going to decrease the overall leveling time faster than that strength will. I did a little experiment to see, on average, how long I'm going to spend in combat and in recovery. I did 39 encounters with a few different types of mobs. Some were higher level than me and some were lower level. For recovery time, I used pots, bandages, and food, whatever was in my bag to help me recover faster. I found that my in-combat time averaged about 14 seconds per fight, and my recovery time averaged about 17 seconds per recovery, so it's pretty close. What this does is it shows us how big of a deal recovery time is, and how it affects your overall leveling time. On average, people are going to spend as long or longer in recovery than in combat. So the things that we can do to lower the recovery time are going to be extremely useful in the long run. As I said before, this average recovery time was including bandages. If you aren't using food or bandages, for one, get food and bandages. I mean, come on, what are you doing? And second, spirit becomes a whole lot more valuable because it's your only source of healing and recovery. And I mean, if you don't have spirit, they're going to be waiting there for a really long time waiting for that health to regenerate. And mobs are going to be respawning, and then they're going to die. Then they're going to be one of those people whining about how hard warriors are to level, and then they're going to reroll a hunter or a warlock. I did another experiment to see what it would be like leveling in spirit gear versus leveling in strength gear. It's important to note that I'm not using any abilities in this experiment, because I don't want to compromise it with having a slightly different rotation. I say that so that you guys watching aren't like, "Oh wow, this guy's a total noob! He's only doing 40 DPS at level 30! I could do 100 DPS at level 5! Anyway, I found that the amount of strength I had to sacrifice to get the 70 spirit didn't really have that much of an impact on my damage. As you can see here on the damage meter, you can see what the DPS was for the fight as soon as one of the mobs die. And as you can see, there's not that much difference in the damage that I'm doing to these mobs. In fact, I am sometimes doing more damage in the spirit gear, due to RNG and stuff like that. But with the spirit gear, my health is regenerating at an incredible speed. I can just go from mob to mob without having any problems. My health just regenerates back to full without me having to worry about it. Not really sure what this implies or what the perfect ratio of spirit and strength is. I'm just here to point out that spirit isn't as bad as people keep making it out to be. Now, granted, this is on Light's Hope, and so from what I understand, the stat values are supposed to be similar to what they were in vanilla, but obviously it's not going to be perfect. We'll have to wait for the classic servers to know exactly what the values are going to be like. Alright guys, that's all I got for now. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell button. Also, if you share it with your friends, that would be awesome.